Welcome to the very first episode of No Set Path. I'm your host, Drew English, cinematographer and media company owner, and I just want to give you a very heartfelt thank you for being here from the beginning. I'm super excited to get this off the ground and have these conversations. Our first guest is a good friend and colleague of mine, Brandon Bloch. Brandon's been in production for over 10 years as a cinematographer and director, and is now a founding partner of Hometeam, a fully remote production company with a global network of top-tier talent in every US state and across 150 plus countries. I've shot a bunch of work for Hometeam in the past for HBO and NBC, among other projects, and it's pretty amazing what these guys are able to pull off at scale just by leveraging all those resources. Not only does Hometeam have Emmy, Clio, and Webby Awards under their belt, but they've just been named one of Fast Company's most innovative companies of 2023. Super excited for them. It was really a joy to be able to talk to Brandon about everything from how he got started in filmmaking to helping head up such a successful venture. So now, on to the interview.
Let's reveal some of the warts. Yeah. I mean, it's cool you're doing this because so I run a happy hour here in Austin, which you have attended.
Which I have attended, yeah.
You have attended, yes.
Yeah.
And there's so much value there because that happy hour, I could talk for the next hour about this happy hour. So You're going to have to stop me. But
that's fine.
You know, I started the happy hour because I was a freelancer working at home all day, had just moved here to Austin from Brooklyn, and thought, well, hey, if I'm having a hard time meeting people, other people must be having a hard time meeting people. And what better way to kind of introduce yourself to a city than like create a hub where people can come in and connect. And also the honest truth is my wife had a job, and so she had a built-in work community when she got here, right? People to go to happy hours with. And I was like, well, freelance creatives don't have that. So started the Austin Creatives Happy Hour. And over time it has grown organically, purely by word of mouth. I'm not like trying to make it into like a slick business opportunity or anything, like very, very much resisting that.
Yeah.
And I think what that means is that it's kind of like organically developed into this very nice, wholesome like community. And it's grown because it feels like a safe space. The reason I bring it up is because when we get together at like a, beer garden or, outdoor bar, and there's many great ones around Austin. When I tell people about this happy hour, I'm like, hey, by the way, so I do this happy hour. Be prepared. You're not going to wear a name tag. You're not going to hand out business cards. You probably won't talk about work very much. And the majority of the conversations I have at those happy hours is about family, health insurance.
Yep.
Where are you traveling to? How do you get the work you get, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like everything but the craft, even though what's miraculous is over time, you start as friends and you get to know each other as people. And then like, lo and behold, what's so beautiful about it is like months later, I look on Instagram, someone's sharing like a commercial they shot or whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like everyone they're listing in the credits is like people they met and connected with at the happy hour. So the spirit is start as friends. The rest will kind of work itself out,
Well, it's really interesting. So, and I love the fact that you're calling out specifically that it's like, this isn't that happy hour, that creative happy hour isn't like your traditional or what you might consider a traditional like networking event in the creative space. And like in our case, filmmaking or whatever, because it's like, I think that's something. And
that's
both of us having lived in New York for quite some time. I mean, it is a totally different pace and a totally different agenda when you're out socializing with people. Whereas like, I feel a lot of what's been lost, just in like the States in general is, you meet somebody and one of the first questions is, what do you do? Instead of like, well, where are you from? And there's a lot of power in the difference there. And I love that, there's a lot of conversation about family, like really pragmatic stuff, which is what I'm so curious about doing this show, is like health insurance. God, it kills me. It's like, I could go on about the reasons, like the number one reason why I would like move out of the US. It's like literally just my struggle with health insurance.
Or the number one reason, probably, freelance filmmakers go start working at a tech company or whatever.
Yeah. But I mean, I started there, and I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but I had a full-time job, like 9 to 5, doing tech support over the phone right out of school. And I did that for way too long. And I just don't have, I did it for like 5.5 years. And I just don't have the stomach to go back to that, even though everything else is kind of an uphill battle. It's like, it's great to have your insurance covered and it's great to have a steady paycheck, but it wasn't for me.
Well,
it wasn't for me.
Look, topic number one.
Yeah.
It's okay to have seasons, right? Like,
sure.
Like, there's a long story I could tell about how I got into this, but we'll give a little glimpse into the running around the woods with my dad's camera. Like, okay. I'm sure a lot of people watching this had that phase in their, infancy, and making stop motion animation by just hitting stop start real quick.
Right.
And, all that, recreating scenes from movies, shooting spoof ads.
Yeah. Mine was, I had my dad's high 8 camera, and you would make titles by writing like on white paper in black Sharpie, like what the title was. And then there was this button that would like extract that and superimpose it over the image. And it was actually pretty cool for the time. But anyway, side note.
Okay. So that's my background. Mm-hmm. Always an artist, always always an artist, always an illustrator, like mostly just for myself.
Yeah.
Cartoon characters, drawing really elaborate, like Star Wars characters. Not realizing that could be a career if I really pursued that. That would have been awesome. But, and then you start to hear in the US and in the school education system, but like, how are you actually going to make a living? Okay. Mm-hmm. So now I need to, is graphic design good enough? Like, could that be a living? But then I went to University of Maryland, which was just not a creative kind of a environment. But what was nice was I kind of made my own major, American Studies. And toward the end, I discovered entrepreneurship. They were kicking off this really awesome new program in entrepreneurship. And I discovered that, and it kind of like was like a big light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Part of that program is writing a business plan. It all kind of leads up to like this big business plan that you enter into the business plan competition at the school. And I wrote mine about, so my dad is a auto safety expert, and he actually has 2 Emmy Awards for investigative journalism. So he was on the news in LA, ABC News, doing car review reports, mm-hmm. car reports for many years. So he's always about like, how do we tell a visual story? And that was ingrained in me. And so in this program, this entrepreneurship program, him and me, I made this, we started working together.
Yeah.
The summer between junior and senior year. Apple had just come out with, their newest equipment and iMovie. And Jeff Goldblum was on TV saying like, it's as easy as, in his Jeff Goldblum way.
In his way.
Yeah. Did you know you could be a director too? And I was like watching that and being like, yeah. Okay.
I can do that.
My dad was like, hey, we have, this big case against an automaker, and we want to it's tragic stuff. Like a mom, dad, and most children in a big family in Philadelphia burned to death in a car accident. Okay.
Jesus.
And so his job would typically be, so let's make the presentation in a court in pretrial and in court cases as to why the fuel tank failed in this case,
Sure.
right?
I went and shot stills for your dad once.
Oh yeah,
like last year.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. So I'm pretty well versed in how it goes, but it's just like basically collecting visuals to like aid in a court case, essentially.
Well, okay. So visuals are, so the written word is this compelling, audio and pictures is this compelling, video is like this compelling and convincing and memorable, right? So filmmaking and video is like the ultimate medium.
Right.
So the idea was, can we make a video about this court case to tell the story about this family and what was going on the night of their accident and why this thing failed and what was the result and to their, how it destroyed their family, and and go inspect the vehicle and dissect what actually failed and where and how that led to the fire and do a recreation. Okay. So using iMovie, stitching that whole story together, led to me learning iMovie
right.
by myself, in a really hacked together kind of way, filming documents on the kitchen floor,
Yep.
and on, like just figuring it out. How does it go?
But figuring it out all on your own.
Well, leads to, to kind of wrap up the story, if you're all still following me, I don't know, leads to that case settling for $10 million, right? For the surviving children of this family. So video content that actually leads to direct result. Pretty compelling. Leads to my dad and I going like, oh, there might be something here, leads to me in the entrepreneurship program writing about video as a way to more effectively present legal cases. And then that business plan won the business plan competition at the school.
Interesting.
So I leave University of Maryland and I went and did an internship at a PR agency and kind of wasn't into it. The economy wasn't doing well anyway. They weren't offering me a job. So then went off and turned this into a business with my dad. And so over the next 5 or so years, we made like 45 different videos for court cases, so that's like chapter 1 of my story, I would say.
It's
you want to talk
interesting
about weird paths to get in, like that's a pretty weird one.
Super weird. Really that's weirder than mine. Mine's different, less weird, but different. I just I did a full stop career change when I turned 30. I was going to be a musician. Like that's what I went to school for. I went to recording school. I have a bachelor's of music, which is maybe the most useless degree you could possibly get at a 4-year college. But it's fine. I had a college experience. I tried doing music professionally afterwards. I was moderately successful in the sense that like I made some money, but I was new to New York City and would burn through all that money just like surviving.
So what was your job? Like, how were you making money in New York?
Oh, so there's a much longer story, which we won't get into, but essentially once I was in New York, I was trying to write and produce for other artists, which was more just like trying to build a portfolio of things. I got some music licensed. I knew one guy from my days in Boston who was doing music licensing. So I got a couple of songs placed on like Keeping Up with the Kardashians, which I still like. Whoa, every now and again. Huge. The money has really fallen off. Every couple of months I'll get like $15 deposited into my account, which is hilarious that it's still going.
I bet that feels good though still.
Oh yeah, it's a fun story.
Finding money under your mattress kind of Or
Yeah,
like
I mean,
the
at this
pillow
stage,
cushions?
$15, it just like kind of disappears into the ether. And then I was doing some underscore for like ad campaigns. So I did some music for like a Dodge Ram like web campaign, stuff like that. But I just like I couldn't do it. I was, sitting by myself in a dark room all day, like trying to figure out how to meet people and like network and all this stuff. And I was running out of money. So I wound up getting a part-time job working for Apple. So I was working fixing iPhones at Apple Grand Central for like a year and a half. And in that time had friends, that were running around the city with like 5Ds, making legit, like making real money. And I figured I could
So like
teach
2011,
myself.
2012.
It's pretty much right on. Yeah, like 2012,
You could
2013.
trace someone's like timeline by what camera they're using.
Yeah, pretty much. So I went to B&H and I bought a used 7D with whatever kit lens, and I just taught myself to shoot and edit.
24 to 105?
28 to 135.
Okay.
24 to 105 would have been a luxury. That was an L lens. This was like the one that didn't have a constant aperture, so it's like you zoom in and it would stop itself down. But anyway, so I taught myself to shoot and edit. I like made one or two little projects and like sent that around to people, and that was directly responsible for me getting like edit jobs to start. And it just kind of snowballed from there. But I had no idea. Like, I had no idea what I was doing.
I have like a random question, because this is a theory I've always had, but I've never like asked an actual musician.
Sure.
My feeling, I have music in my background. That's a whole other story I could tell you. In my family background.
Yeah.
The short of it, the headline is my grandfather played drums for the Dave Brubeck Quartet.
Oh, like, dope. Yeah. That's awesome.
He was the original drummer for the quartet. And so I've always felt like music is like in my DNA, especially drumming and rhythm and timekeeping.
Yeah.
My question to you is my theory that people have always said, do you play an instrument? I go, no, but I edit, because it feels like very similar. Do you feel like you got into editing because of music? And like, I feel like it was a
really easy crossover because, sense of timing and being able to cut stuff to, like, even just being able to cut something to a music track
and a timeline.
I mean, all that, especially going to recording school and like having a bunch of time in on like Pro Tools and things like that. It was a very easy transition to like get comfy in an editing system. But so what's different is like, we both kind of found our own ways into filmmaking and things like that. But you have a little bit of entrepreneur training. Like you have a little, like, you were in a program at school. You wrote a business plan. I don't know. I don't have any formal business training. I have no idea what I'm doing half the time. But,
Well, look, I wouldn't call it business. I still think of myself first and foremost as a designer. Mm-hmm. And what I mean is design as, it's not art. Like, to me, art and being like a narrative script writer, I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone because I don't know much about it, but it seems like more lyrical and more like I'm a storyteller. Right. I don't think of myself as a storyteller. I think of myself as a designer. What I mean there is like, if you give me a white sheet of paper and say, write a story, I'm like, I don't know where to begin. But if you say, here's like 5 constraints, build something, I'll be like, now I know where to start. And so I feel like that's design mind kind of, so entrepreneurship and that program. In high school, I started a industrial design club, and I wanted to be a product designer. When I found entrepreneurship, I think the reason why it felt right was because it was the nearest thing to that design way of thinking that I could find at the University of Maryland. And so the business plan I wrote was this blend of, my dad taking me to wrecking yards and telling me why car design leads to injuries and death and how it could be done better. So understanding like design and product design, but it's complex, and how do you tell a story, mixed with me running around the woods with my friends, mixed with me being a designer and knowing how to use a computer and learn iMovie real quick. And then just seeing an opportunity, and then you blend it all together, and being kind of like the kind of person who loves, sort of like observing the world and saying, what's not right here and how can we solve that?
Well, that's an interesting kind of segue, because if we're like in keeping with the spirit of what's kind of the unspoken stuff that, nobody really talks about. It's like when I met you in New York, you were almost exclusively directing, sort of.
Yeah.
And then we hadn't been connected for a super long time, for a while, but like not a super long time before you guys moved to Austin. And then I feel like when you moved to Austin, there was like, I, at least as an outside observer, right, and I could be totally off base and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there was a little bit of like trying to find your footing or find your I feel like you were trying on some different hats. There was the
absolutely.
Oh, man.
I mean, I could tell you why that is. Yeah.
I would love to hear about it, because I'm just thinking, you showed me last time I saw you the app that you took to South by Southwest, but then there was also
my trying to fuck with people phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was so we could talk about that, but then wasn't there also like a tiny home or like a I forget, it started with a K and I can't think of what it is.
I was like the head of marketing at Casita, and so like tiny smart home, like the Apple of homes.
Yeah. But I mean, you went from directing in New York, and I knew you as just being involved in the film community, to like marketing for a company, like taking an app to South by Southwest. And, now you've kind of come full circle with Hometeam and everything you have going there. So I'm so curious, like, what was that transition from New York to Austin like? And like, what was your life like trying to figure out kind of where you fit in?
Yeah, that's interesting. You kind of, as the outside observer, because you spent time in New York, in Brooklyn, like I did.
Yeah.
Like when for the audience again, it's like, in DC, I started off doing everything. So
I forgot you were in DC.
Yeah. So like,
I forgot about that.
After doing this business with my dad, I went to
That's right.
American University and did their film program. That's a whole other episode if you want to talk about it. Then I went to work at the State Department and did documentaries for them.
Okay.
And social content, like video for social, kind of experimenting with like video and social, and how can you create conversations? How can you make videos for international audiences about American stories? Super cool. I consider that like finishing school. Like taking everything I kind of hodgepodge together and learned in school, and then like actually applying it to a real
refining it, make it into something. Yeah. Right.
And then left that and kind of said, I'm a freelance. What do you need me to do? And then so did everything. That's when it was like, sure, I guess producing, but who will be there at that time? And can I ask somebody if we could film there? That's producing.
Yeah, exactly.
Casting, which of my friends wants to be in this thing? DPing, going there with a 7D and shooting and being like, I'm a DP.
Yeah, for anyone listening, you can you technically could be any of those roles if you do one.
Well, that's the moral of that story. It is like for people coming up, I would say it was nice to start in a smaller market like DC because I just started calling myself a director.
Yeah.
In DC, I was a director. In DC, I was like the, top 5 filmmakers of DC or whatever.
Yeah.
In the world, nobody knew me at all. But I didn't know any better. So I thought the next place to go is New York, and I'll just start calling myself a director. And that's one of the big secrets that nobody talks about. It's like, nobody's going to like hand you a medal or a certificate that says you are now a director. You just start calling it.
What's interesting is I struggled with something similar for a long time, where I certainly am a jack of all trades. Like I can do a lot of the jobs decently well. So for a long time, I would have conversations with colleagues and friends, and they would say, well, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? And I have a hard time like putting a singular label on myself.
Interesting.
Well, because there's so much stuff I want to do. Honestly, it really is just that simple. Like I'm so interested in many things, but I was afraid for the longest time to start calling myself a DP, a cinematographer. And then one day I just started doing it because it was literally like, oh, well, I'm getting like most of my income this year is from getting hired to shoot stuff. So I'll just call myself a DP. And after I started doing that, things kind of like settled in. I don't want to say settled into a groove, but like that particular path became a bit clearer. And then it like opened up other opportunities down the line to, start a company and blah, 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 like do other things.
I would encourage anyone to dabble, right? Like get your hands in it. Just raise your hand and help. Slot into crews where you can, because it's always valuable to like learn what all the departments do and what makes your G&E team successful and what makes your art team successful and what makes your camera, it's like, that's so valuable. That's the stuff. Like, I think if you go right into a school and they teach you to do one thing, I get the value of it. I really do. You'll be like a super powered specialist in a lot of ways, but I love how I learned, which was by doing for the most part.
I do too.
I think my kids are coming home. This is real. This is what,
I'm curious to go back and listen, because my daughter, who turned 5 months today, was being very fussy when we first started this. And now I don't hear anything. So I'm not sure where she's gone.
They're trying to break in.
Oh no.
This is the episode. I mean,
but that's it though, right? But that's
100%.
But that's it, because,
you don't see on many other pieces of content or series or whatever, like, hey, I'm this creative and I know all the answers and I've done all this cool stuff and I'm going to show you all the highlights of my career, and my kids are trying to get in the door.
Yeah, dude, I mean, that's the thing. Just to kind of take like a hard right turn for a second. It's like that's exactly what it's all about. Is I want to talk. So, it's maybe it's like therapy for me, like creative therapy. I don't know. But, especially lately having an infant daughter, and we only have one and you have 2 kids, it's like everything just becomes like, I wouldn't change it. It's like the best thing, but also everything else in life just becomes incredibly complicated.
Yeah.
Even to like, had this been last year and I was doing this, I would have been like more prepared and like had some time, and like literally my wife came home, I ran downstairs, I turned on the computer, and we started this because I was on baby duty right before.
I'm gonna turn on there's a thunderstorm going on outside.
No, that's okay. I can't hear it. But I'm just so fascinated. Like,
I love winging it. I'm glad I did my 10,000 hours before now. I will say.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I would encourage best you can. You know, do it when you can, when you're, you know, whatever, like more free to roam, unattached, less responsibility, like, you know.
For sure. I mean, and it's still fine. Like, I've noticed that it's still fine to like add all this like really big responsibility. Like, having kids is a big deal. I was never a hard no, but I was always like, I don't know what this is going to be like. I absolutely love it. It's like the best thing. But the stakes just get higher. Like, when she was 6 weeks old, I had to go to London for 5 days for a job. And that was really hard.
Really hard.
Like, across the board. Like, I don't want to leave the family. My wife is on her own here. I think her sister came for a couple of days. But it's like, it's a lot. And like, navigate, you know, it's a lot. It's like figuring out how to just like maintain your sanity and also like continue to be successful and make a living in like an extremely competitive field, and then just also like, you know, have some sort of like normal family life at the end of the day is like wild.
It's impossible.
It's impossible. Something's got to give.
It is something. You will fall short somewhere every day. So you know, New York was not that. It was like my chance to go to Africa twice in a year, and Southeast Asia and Europe and across the US in the same year. You know, like,
which is amazing.
Yeah. A lot of inoculations, a lot of extra, you know, vaccine cards all of a sudden in my passport.
Exactly.
And you know, and sitting on the beach in Zanzibar and literally looking out at the water and being like, okay, I've done it. Like, got it. And then I wrote a postcard to my wife. I was like, okay, I've seen the world, coming home. But then the next after that was like kind of like a, what would you call it? Like almost a hangover or something. Like it then became too much of a good thing. Right. And you're like, oh wait, in order to make money doing this, I need to be on the road. And even if when I don't want to be anymore, and even as I'm having a kid, and even as I'm having a second kid, it's like, I can't do this. And then it feels like abusive to yourself or something. Like, just, oh my gosh, I'm just like grinding so hard and like, it becomes challenging.
I know. And it's great that you've kind of arrived at a place where you can, I mean, I guess it's like you can travel if you want to, but you don't need to.
With Hometeam?
Yeah.
Yeah. The answer to your original question some 30 minutes ago, I guess, is when you move from New York, where you could be a specialist and make a career, and you go to a smaller market like Austin, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's turning the clock back a little. You need to like redefine your identity a little.
Yeah.
And also I was ready to try something different. Like as I mentioned in the beginning, I didn't grow up saying I want to be a filmmaker, right? I grew up saying I want to be a designer, an entrepreneur, or this or that. So yeah, I took some side roads,
testing the waters.
Yeah.
New city, like kind of rebuilding life a little bit. Like, what feels comfy? Where do you?
I wanted to see what
it
felt like to win South by Southwest, right? So I made
you gotta
a
tell
fake
the story.
app.
Yeah,
I made a fake app called Liver that was
that's LIVR, no E. It's LIVR. Yeah.
I have the breathalyzer around here somewhere, but basically you plug in this little breathalyzer, blow into your phone, prove you were legally drunk, and then you would be granted access into the social network, where there were features like trash talk, or, you know, kind of like a heat map of where people are the most drunk at any given bar in your area. And it was just total BS.
You did a whole
launch campaign. Yeah,
like a launch video.
Yeah, I did a launch video with my friends who were improv actors as the founders and played it like super straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, made a website, populated
And it blew
these
up at
fake
South by
founders'
blew up
LinkedIn
at South
pages
by.
with whole histories,
Yeah.
right?
So you could so someone could go and like trace it to some
Who's
degree.
this guy Avery
Right.
Plotz? Who the hell's? Oh, he went to that school. Oh.
Okay.
I was just like, yeah, I could win this thing. This is, and it could be a comment on like what bullshit the economy was, especially at the time, and maybe still is. I could launch, the killer app at South by and win with nothing more than, like a Canon
The social
5D
network for
and a couple
the social
buddies.
network for drunk people. And it
won South by.
And it blew up. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
We launched the day before South by. On the first day of South by, it was named like, craziest app of the year. The next day, Kleiner Perkins VCs are contacting the fake founders of this company.
I absolutely love
radio interviews, written up in all the tech blogs and all that.
Oh my God.
So, I just wanted to play around too.
Because you could.
Yeah. And just find a voice too, right? Like that was so fun. After that, I was like, man, can I like do this all the time? Can I be like Nathan For You, my favorite show? It's like, can I do that? Like, that'll be amazing. And then back to running a production company with Lagan. We started Magic Seed, and it was like starting a production company up. And then the pandemic hits. Yeah. And then, and then kind of like everything I feel like I've kind of mentioned in the story sort of crystallized in this pretty distinct moment, which was...
I remember the moment. I remember when I got the email from you guys that's like, hey, we're doing like a pretty hard pivot, and this is what things are going to look like now.
Well, it's like, hey, the world is doing a pretty hard pivot.
Yeah. We're
going to pivot with it. Right. And that's the attitude,
And so what was the pivot? Tell us the story.
Yeah. I'll set it up by saying my dad, who clearly is an influential figure in my life, always used to say, whenever life presents challenges, figure out how to turn a disadvantage into an advantage. So I think that's the mantra in the back of my mind. Right.
Yeah.
And then the design thinker. Okay. Now there's a pandemic, travel's impossible. But, I'm scrolling through my Instagram feed. I'm friends with agency people. I'm friends with DPs. I'm friends with filmmakers. It was a slideshow. My friend Mike, I know he has like a Red, an amazing lens kit, and a Movi and whatever else in his closet. And he's like, guess I'm going to be filming my cat for the next however long, and then my friend who works at an agency, guess we're not going to the office anymore. We're not going to do anything, and being like, supply meets demand.
Totally.
Travel is not possible, and then next layer in my story, working with Harrison with commission content, knowing filmmakers all over the place. Lagan and I touring all over the world on tour buses with folks like Kesha, linking up with crews everywhere, knowing filmmakers everywhere, knowing we're all kind of like peers and like a fellowship.
Yeah.
We've all taught ourselves the same gear remotely wherever you go. My friend who I worked with in DC moves to Germany. He knows the same gear, right?
Yeah.
And then, and Harrison was back in the picture. We were talking about all the pain points of production. Lagan and I are running Magic Seed. COVID comes along, and I think it was like that all at once. All of us have this crystallized thought of like, we have the answer. It's remote global production.
Which is what Hometeam does.
That's Hometeam. Shoot global stories and nationwide stories on a local level with local crews.
Yeah, and it's really seemed to work out great for you guys. I mean, I've had a chance to come out and shoot a bunch of jobs for you for like stuff that I probably wouldn't have been able to get on my own, like HBO jobs and like NBC and like some big, I mean, I'm playing a smaller role in that stuff, but still it's like, it's cool. It's cool to like have the experience and like throw on the resume.
Well, you're playing a smaller role, but you're the DP on like a 4 or 5 person crew. So you're
leading.
you're leading the show. It's like, it goes right back to like when Harrison brought me on Starbucks. I was shooting all the content for Starbucks in New York.
Right.
So it's the model that, Harrison dreamed up. But now it's found its moment, I feel.
Totally. I mean, you guys just
constraint.
went to the, what was the conference? Because when you were in New York, you were speaking
AICP.
at... Yeah. I mean...
But it's like, it's a few things. It's the constraint. I'll tell you why Hometeam is successful, and especially during the pandemic. At its inception, it was the constraint of either you try something new or you don't work. Like, it goes for the filmmakers and especially for the clients.
Yeah.
Like agency, brands, all that, entertainment clients are very risk averse bunch. Yeah. But if the alternative is you just don't make anything, they're going to be willing to try something. So that's great, because innovation means you have to try something outside the norm to move forward. And also, in the meantime, over the past 10 years, filmmakers in every state, US territory, and most countries picking up the same tools, all going on Vimeo or No Film School or whatever, all learning the same, trading these kind of stories. Here's how you do this technically. Here's how you start your LLC. Here's, So a lot of folks independently figuring this out, but in a very consistent way. And the technology catches up. Now everybody's remote working. Everybody's on Zoom. You could feed from the camera into Zoom. You could have Video Village wherever you are. I could direct from Austin, a shoot in San Francisco, the next day in LA, the next day in Toronto, like we did for LG. Yeah. With A-list talent, and it looks great, and nobody would know that I didn't travel to all those places. And so, we've had a number of big successes. We just wrapped our second show for HBO, Apple Plus, Discovery Plus.
Yeah, man.
We just finished our 4th season for The Voice, so we're shooting all their home follow packages of the contestants. Yeah. So
that's dope, though. That's such a great, it's inspiring on my end, right? Not just because we're friends and we've known each other for a while, but just as someone who, sitting in the host chair and trying to be transparent about, there's a lot of stuff I still struggle with, because I think I'm getting to the point where you were, where it's not like I don't want to travel. I do dig travel jobs. I love being on set. I love shooting, but I'm trying to find a better balance, and I'm trying to find that other thing that helps me have more of that balance. So, so I can be home and I can help care for my daughter, because we don't have any help, so it's like, so I can do the father husband role a little more easily and still be able to pay the mortgage and the health insurance. And,
travel shouldn't have to be unnecessary to make a living. It should be like a nice to have that you could choose. Or Hometeam is a lot of things. I'm very proud of what we built.
You should be.
I'm very excited about it. I feel like I'm, kind of making a statement in a lot of ways about, I think, a lot of things that were wasteful or inefficient, were bloated about the production process. Silly. Yeah. Just so silly. I'll fly 14 to 16 hours each way to go to the Philippines, film for 6 days, and it comes back as a 90-second piece of content.
I know, it makes no sense.
What is this?
It makes no sense.
And not to mention the carbon footprint of that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so Hometeam is solving a ton of problems, I think.
I agree.
Or at least offering an alternative.
It's offering a good alternative. It's offering a really good alternative and solving problems for like the right set of clients who are, I mean, I think you've really found some really good opportunity.
Well, what I wanted to say though was, it's for the filmmakers too, right? Because
sure.
I'm proud of having come up and played every role in the crew, and that informs every single day the work we're doing. And it is things like making a thing for myself 5 years ago.
Right.
Like, so I could have made a living without getting on a plane all the time, or, you know, I often say it like you have your own business, but I imagine you didn't get into this to have your own business necessarily. Or, you know, do you want to just create? Like you don't maybe want to deal with the bulk of marketing and sales, bringing in work, insurance, bookkeeping.
Yeah, I mean, it's so for me, it's weird because I have my own business, which is a production company that is just me, and I will scale up depending on the job, and we could have a whole separate conversation about just starting to get some momentum and then COVID and then how that has been a little difficult to bring back. But yes, I want to create. There is part of me that gets kind of geeked up about the potential, like, oh, this company could be something.
Yeah.
But also like the daily grind of just like, I mean, I just had to like bring on a bookkeeper because I'm like, I can't keep up with it. I can't like,
look, I'll say it for myself. Like when I just wanted to be a DP or director, it was shocking to me how much of my day was spent doing everything but that. You know? And so I guess that's what I'm saying is Hometeam also wants to be a source of really cool opportunities where, right, Drew, you do you. It's all upside. Yeah. You bring in your own work for your production company.
Yep.
You do that. But you're going to have space on your calendar inevitably. Yep. And if we come calling and say, hey, next week, can you shoot for HBO?
Yeah.
And it's going to be wrapped up in a bow. It's going to be, you know, here's basically where you need to film. It's been permitted. Here's the talent.
It's great.
And this is your.
I had to say no to you for something like recently, and I was really bummed about it because I love working with you guys.
Well, so that means a lot, and so it's it's not meant to replace travel. It's not meant to replace whatever else you want to do, but it's meant to supplement and offer an alternative of like great quality jobs for you to flex your talent, you know? Yeah. And there's people like that everywhere in the world. And we're proud to kind of bring them opportunities and put together teams that enable like brand clients, entertainment clients to not just do things like more cost efficiently and all that, right? Yeah. That's of course part of it, but also like tell the full story. That's where I get really excited. Like, like a lot of our clients, you know, before like tech brands and stuff, if you're launching a product or telling the story of how your product is used, we in the past would have flown to one city and tried to tell as much of that story in that one city as possible. And now it could be like this, we've done this a number of times. Like, well, we could shoot in 8 cities and we could show how these developers make the thing. You're headquartered in Boston or San Francisco, we'll film there. And then we'll film your users all across the world too. So now you're telling the full story, and you're not doing it in a like really crazy, you could tell that all in a week. You could do 8 shoots in 1 week. You could do 8 shoots in a single day.
It's not this huge protracted thing.
Yeah. Like, if we wanted to go to 8 locations the old way, you know, fly, land, scout, shoot, travel day, fly, land, shoot, scout, all this, down days, rest days. Shooting in 8 cities would have taken 20 days. I don't know.
Yeah. It'd been a month, you know?
Yeah.
Just about.
So yes, I think I've kind of explained it. I don't know.
I mean,
that's what we're working on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And zooming out enough where you say, this is awesome. And I'm grateful for my partners, and I'm grateful for the people who decided to leave jobs or join us in some way with Hometeam. I'm grateful for the crews that will say yes when, we find something for them to film locally. I'm grateful for my parents and my dad instilling a lot of things in me, and this kind of optimism, turn lemons into lemonade sort of thing, because I haven't always been that way. You could definitely be pessimistic about a lot of things going on in the world. Just, and finding something that I think is engaging enough for the whole brain, and feels like we might be making some small mark for people and for ourselves, and be proud of what we're creating. So man, like, long winding path. I would say you hear this from everybody, like, overnight successes are 10 years in the making kind of thing.
Totally true. It's a very true statement.
I hope I'm being seen as a success. I still don't even know, but I will say there's definitely 10 years of meandering experimentation and doubt and self-doubt and depression and, and incredible highs. And
we didn't even get into the mental circus that goes on, at least inside my head, on a daily basis. I'm sure
you triple bid and you lose, you just squeak a loss or whatever you want to say.
I know.
And it changes your entire year, and you're depressed for the entire year. And then you see the person who directed it instead in their career, and then you're like, well, could that have been me? Right?
Sure.
Like, it's shitty. A lot of that's shitty.
Yeah. It's hard. So where do you find,
trying to change that stuff too? So
so where do you find any like moments of Zen, as it were, for yourself during the day?
I'm trying. I'm trying harder. I'm trying harder to be grateful, to express gratitude.
Sure.
No,
that's important. We're going to wrap it up because I know you got to go, but maybe just so I can put it in the episode, like, so where can people find you, learn more about you or the company, and any sites or profiles you want to?
Yeah, go to wearehometeam.com for Hometeam. And for the deep cuts, Brandon Bloch, BrandonBloch.com. It's a little frozen in time. It's like a time capsule. But you could watch Liver on there, which
I think I went there last night.
Liver and Erosion. Yeah, like these projects where I'm like, I'm really proud of some of this stuff. And
man, leave it up. You should
get a glimpse at like my voice and what I was trying to do before.
Yeah.
Right
on.
Yeah. So
thanks for being on, dude.
Thanks for doing this. I hope.
You're number one, guest number one.
I love it. This is inspiring.
I feel good.
I feel good to meet people, connect with people.
Yeah. It's just, and granted, we have enough history where it's like just having a conversation, but I think it's doing what I was hoping it would do, which is like, I can just talk some things out, like get some perspective, and I hope it goes the same on the other end as well.
I think it's a great exercise. I
think it's a great exercise.
I think maybe my happy hour is my version of it, but I just read Sick in the Head.
Oh, I don't know that.
By Judd Apatow, and I didn't realize since high school he's been interviewing comics. Like
that I did know.
Yeah, and so it's just a sequence of interviews, and it reminds me of what you're doing. It's like he just wanted to meet people, learn about the craft, learn about people's stories, and they say yes, and then he's learning, they're sharing, it's being shared with an audience, the audience is learning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping it turns into something, but the genuine kind of perspective is I just want to have conversations, and I'm trying to keep it casual and, just have it as another outlet. So we'll see what
lean
happens.
into that. Just keep it pure. And
oh no, there's too much pressure on other things. I can't put pressure on this.
Yeah,
No.
make it your safe space and your fun, and
my Zen box.
But then share it on YouTube. I mean, that kind of stuff. It's like,
yeah, I mean, I definitely credit you to like saying, let's do video, and at least I'll have it. And
yeah,
you know,
it's really interesting stuff. There's people out there who, you know, during the pandemic, I went down that road too. Like,
sure, yeah,
like deeper conversations, lean back content of like, wow, these people, you know, that I admire or I've heard of, or they have an interesting story. Like, how did they get there? And it's cool. It's cool to like offer this kind of stuff out into the world.
Yeah. Well,
it's
thanks.
not so like edited down and packaged up, you know?
Yeah. Thanks for doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. All right, everybody, there you have it. Thank you for tuning in. I'm doing a new recording, repping my Hometeam t-shirt in this outro. Big congrats to them on the Fast Company accolades. If you want to find out more about what Hometeam and Brandon are up to, you can check out their website at wearehometeam.com, or their Instagram is Hometeam Content. That's at Hometeam Content. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.